We got Craig Leinauer. He's claim manager, inland marine at Travelers Insurance, dialing out to Chicago, Illinois right now. Hey, Craig, thank you for taking the time to join Dooner and the Dude on the air on What the Truck.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Yeah, man, we're happy to have you. Introduce yourself real quick to this audience who may not have heard your voice or met you before. How'd you get with Travelers and that kind of thing?
Oh, I've been with Travelers for about 10 years now, and I manage the in the marine segment specific to transportation, and I manage that nationwide. So, prior to being at Travelers, I was actually a lawyer and had some transportation legal experience as well. So that's sort of my path.
Wow, exciting. We just had our Global Trade Tech Conference yesterday. Got to hear from Port of Long Beach, Port of LA, a lot of that inland cargo, a lot of ocean freight. For those not familiar, let's just define it, though. What would inland marine insurance mean, just in case no one's ever heard that terminology?
Yeah, so inland marine is kind of a catch-all, insurance line, but it's segmented, so it can include, transportation, builders risk, contractors equipment, and it can also have some other lines in there as well, some product like jeweler's block and that kind of thing. But I'm squarely in the transportation space, and so that's my world. That's my piece of the inland marine pie.
Thanks for that, Craig. This is Mike Vincent here. So tell us, what are some of the most common types of transportation claims? We've seen an uptick in maritime, but specifically in transportation, what are some of the most common claims that you're seeing?
Yeah, so, the most common type of loss that we see for our customers happens when cargo becomes damaged in transit. And this usually happens when the truck hits something on the highway or it rolls over and causes damage. But it's not always the case or necessary for the truck to hit something on the highway for cargo to become damaged. So aside from collision losses, which we see the most of, another common loss that we see is where the cargo isn't properly prepared for transit, or it shifts while it's en route. And this usually happens because, it isn't stowed correctly, and then the truck makes a hard stop, or the truck takes a turn, takes a turn too fast, turns a corner too fast, and the stuff inside will shift and become damaged. So that's what we see most frequently. I would be remiss not to tell you that cargo theft is a huge leading cause, of cargo claims. It's something that we see a lot of, and it's something that insurance policies have exclusions for, or they relate to this risk. So given that this is a very common loss, it's very important for everybody out there to read and understand your policy. Make sure you're covered for this threat and that you understand any limitations that you might have related to this risk. So that's what we see the most of. While not as common, there are some other types of losses that we see as well. And those are specific to like weather-related risks, water damage, faulty trailers, and then also, risks from the cargo being stored in a warehouse. Cargo can be targeted when it's at rest and it's not moving for theft, when it's being stored at a warehouse, or it can also become damaged if something happens to the warehouse itself. So, we don't see that as frequently, but I should say, and I should mention that when we do see it, that is a much bigger exposure, and it tends to be a more severe type claim. So that's what we see the most of.
I am the son of a insurance executive. My dad spent his whole life in the marine cargo insurance field in the Boston area, so very familiar with this terminology. But one thing I learned from him is that you really need a dedicated team to work these claims, especially when you start talking about Incoterms and all of those things. I think a lot of shippers don't really understand where their coverage is and where their coverage isn't, and all of those blind spots. And, as you mentioned, the biggest thing in insurance is the exclusions, right? You have to know what the policy represents. So how important is it to have that dedicated team with expertise?
Listen, our Travelers dedicated claim team in transportation. And by the way, the difference between the marine line that you talk about, that your father was involved with, and the inland marine line is that, the marine, of course, is ocean freight, right? So it's that risk while the goods are on the vessel. And then the inland marine transportation that we work with, in my world, is when it comes off the container comes off the ship and then it's moved inland, right, to its distribution point. And that's what we insure. So, but back to your question, I just want to make sure I clarify that. So back to your question about the dedicated claim team, that's something that really differentiates Travelers in the marketplace. And at Travelers, our transportation claim professionals are only focused on transportation claims. So they don't dabble in any other type of loss. And because of this, they develop a specialized understanding of the transportation industry. And they're also supported by other dedicated transportation resources as well. And these other folks include, folks like specialized cargo loss investigators, legal counsel, surveyors, and salvers to help with salvage when the goods become damaged. So those other folks are very important as well. And let me give you an example or a couple of examples of why those partnerships are important. So, for example, our network of in-house and external legal resources, our lawyers have broad-reaching expertise. They benefit our customers that do business in many different states and throughout the country. So let's say, by way of example, you're a New England-based trucking company and you get sued in some far-off place like Arizona. It can be a challenge for you to find the right transportation lawyer that you need in a state that's far away from your home state. So the great news is that we have attorneys on staff with niche transportation expertise and also legal partners all over the country when and where our customers need them. Similarly, we have an outside network of salvers who assist with salvage from coast to coast. And these folks help us recover goods from an accident or a theft site. So, by way of example, let's say we have that same New England-based customer who's hauling food and beverage across the country, and then they're in an accident again in Arizona. And let's say that the cargo becomes damaged or displaced. Some of that cargo may be salvageable, but the customer, because they're from New England, they're hundreds of thousands of miles away, and they probably don't know who to contact. So the great news in the salvage space as well is that we can help find a salver quickly, even for things that can spoil fast, like produce and food.
So, Craig, we have just 2 minutes left. So let me ask you, there's a lot involved there. So what specifically what would you advise people to ask? What are the questions they should be asking when they're shopping for an insurance carrier?
Well, it's so critical to find the right insurance partner, and it can mean the difference between getting back to business immediately or being sidelined indefinitely. So you're going to want to find a partner that speaks your language, understands how you can become exposed, and who also has relationships with experts that help you in your time of need. So the two questions that I recommend you ask, the first is how and when do you respond to claims? And the answer to this is going to be telling because it's going to help you understand the claim team that supports you. Or it could reveal that you have a complicated layer of outsourced claim professionals, or worse, that they're not available after normal business hours, on weekends or holidays. And that's important because accidents and exposures happen at any time, and you're going to want a partner that, is available when you need them. And then the second question, secondarily, I would say, you need to ask is what types of in-house and outside partners do you have to protect me, my business, relationships, and my commercial reputation? And you're going to want to listen to the answer to this question, and you're going to listen to some of those things that I mentioned already, like attorneys, in-house cargo theft investigators, surveyors, and salvers to help you with salvaging the goods. And that, and if this partner or potential partner doesn't freely share these kind of details, you're going to want to make sure that you point out the types of people that you expect, to be in the network that you're looking for.
Wow.
So those are the questions.
Craig, where should we send them to?
If you want more information, I would go to travelers.com.
Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Ask those questions before the accident happens, right? Ask the questions.